The Enclave Advanced, my favourite power armour to ever exist in the Fallout series. But what is its story? And you're probably wondering, Wanderer, don't you mean the X01? And the answer to that question, travellers, is no, I don't. And I'm here to explain the differences between the X01 from Fallout 4 and 76 and the Enclave Advanced seen in Fallout 2 and Fallout New Vegas. Let me take you on a trip back in time. A time where there was little to no mutated animals or killer bugs, and raiders weren't a constant threat or there was no Brotherhood of Steel. The 2070s, the same decade that the Great War started and ended, causing the wastelands you see before you today. The Enclave weren't the Enclave, if that makes any sense at all. The Enclave were in fact at the time a shadow section of the United States government, a hidden secret kept under lock and key and guarded by sentry bots. Nobody knew about the Enclave unless you were a conspiracy theorist, or you met them during your last moments for slandering their great nation. The Enclave, being in the position they were in, assisted Vault-Tec in building the vaults for their original purpose of experimentation on the residents, obviously. The Enclave were also behind the FEV project alongside West-Tec, which is why they were required to continue their project nearly 200 years later in California by digging for the Mariposa's military base remains. Which is also where Frank Horrigan became the hulking mutated mass that he was way back when. You can see my last video that I made on Frank Horrigan and the Enclave's goals in Fallout 2 by clicking on the card at the top of the screen. When tension between the Chinese and American governments grew ever tighter, the Enclave were tasked with finding the ultimate weapon to defeat the communist Chinese. The FEV project was one of these ideas. The development of new power armors like the T-51B and new weaponry were also possibilities, but there was one other possibility that never came to fruition until it was too late. The Enclave began work on a new power armor project, one superior to both the T-45D and T-51B combined. An armor stronger than any armor seen in the United States before. Its face and eyes struck fear into the enemies like never before. And its name was even more menacing. The X01 Prototype power armor, developed in the months before the world's end, the best power armor in the US back then, and the armor that never came true. In the years following the Great War, the Enclave continued to complete their project, working tirelessly to finish their power armor. Appalachia in 2102 is the earliest depiction of the power armor we can find, and it appears to still be in prototype form. Appalachia was obviously plagued by the Scorch disease, causing most of the people to die. The Enclave may have been an exception, but we can't ignore what happened to them either. Since that happened, the X01 Appalachia variant was never finished and stayed in a prototype variant, until some residents from Vault 76 came along and finished the job the Enclave started all those years ago. However, Appalachia may be the latest Enclave sector to finish the armor as, well, everyone died. The armor may have been completed long before this, 2080, 2090, 2100, but there's no evidence to prove this. Only one remains. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, 2287, the first place anyone began to find X01 suits in completed form, and in various stages of development. Some are Mark 1, some as high as Mark 6. But one thing's for sure, is that the Enclave managed to finish the X01 sometime before or after the events of Fallout 76, and made different variations of the armor. The fact that old suits of this armor show up around the Commonwealth randomly could even have someone presume that the Enclave is still out there somewhere, and are just carelessly chucking away their old suits of X01 for a new suit developed later on. Speaking of a new suit, the Enclave Advanced, a superior variant of the Enclave X01, with all flaws and design tweaks fixed and doubled. The Enclave Advanced is the most powerful armor in the whole of the wasteland. The Enclave developed this armor in 2222, around 2 decades before Fallout 2, its first appearance. The armor was even more menacing than the X01, especially considering the armor was twice as powerful. The Enclave Advanced was presumably first designed and developed on the Enclave's Californian oil rig, and design blueprints and plans were sent via vertibird or some other way of delivery to other Enclave outposts across the country. The armor saw mass production, unlike the X01, due to the Enclave's might at the time. The X01 wasn't mass produced due to the fact that it was only prototyped and finally finished later on. But the materials were scarce for the Enclave at the time. The Enclave Advanced still saw use later on after the Enclaves defeated the oil rig. An example of this would be in Nevada, 2281. The year is 2281, and the Enclave are defeated twice, once in California and once in the capital Wasteland. But the thing is, no matter how many times you kick the Wasteland's most powerful faction down, they will always find a way to weasel their way back, sometimes with different intentions. With that said, meet the Enclave Remnants. Oh, they're still Enclave, sure, but you have to listen to them before you go running to the nearest NCR Rangers to arrest them. The Remnants want to, get this, help the Wasteland. I know, crazy right? Well, it all starts with a famous courier we all know and love, or hate, whatever floats your boat, and a fella called Arcade Gannon. Arcade Gannon was a follower of the Apocalypse, a faction about helping and healing the wastes and collecting medicine and using it to heal those who were torn apart by storms from the Divide. Arcade was different, however. He was more interested in the history of things, technology, like weapons and autodocs and vertebrates. You see where this is going, don't you? Well, after he opens up to the courier, he admits to being previously with the Enclave and was born in Camp Navarro in 2246. His father was killed during an operation when Arcade was a young boy, and he still doesn't know much about his father's death. Growing up, he closely bonded with the soldiers from his father's unit and his mother, the unit later becoming known as the Enclave Remnants. The unit, Arcade and his mother fled Navarro during the NCR's capture of the base. After this, they moved on, tried to settle down in Vegas, living in constant fear of the Brotherhood of Steel and the NCR hunting them down, and hunting all surviving Enclave members. This is when Arcade Gannon joins the followers. The members of his father's unit were still around: Orion Moreno, Daisy Whitman, Cannibal Johnson, Dr. Henry, Judah Krager, all of them. And so, the courier and Arcade began to carry out their mission in reassembling the Enclave after Arcade explains they aren't the same genocidal murderers they were once regarded as. After reuniting the unit, they meet at the Enclave bunker near Jacobstown, where they agree to fight for the NCR to defeat the Legion, or vice versa. This is the part we halt at, because the armour they wore, the Enclave Advanced, aged and rusty, painted a beautiful navy blue. The armour Arcade Gannon's father wore was once again the Enclave Advanced, but it was the Tesla variant. This was the last time this variant of the Enclave Advanced was seen. That is, until stepping back a couple years, 2277. The Enclave had resumed their position of power, with development of new armors such as the Hellfire Power Armor, a hidden base, and the Enclave Advanced. The Enclave Advanced seen in Fallout 3 is controversial, however, as Fallout Wiki states that it's the same suit of armor seen in Fallout 2 in New Vegas, however looks vastly different. If I were to guess, the Enclave arrive and settle in a Raven Rock, beginning their work on 3 new suits of armor loosely based on the models in the past like the X01 and the Enclave Advanced. A Mark II variant, if you will, but that's just a theory, however. There's also a case of mysterious retcon armor from Nuka World. This is thought to be a very early prototype version of the X01, but contradicts everything we've just talked about. As far as I'm concerned, the dubbed Law Armor of Nuka World by the Fallout community, to me at least, is non-canonical. So, that's the story of the X01 and Enclave Advanced. And as we can tell from what we've learned here, using information from both the Fallout Wiki and canon controversial Fallout Bible, as well as info inside the games, we can conclude that the X01 Power Armor is the predecessor to the Enclave Advanced, and the Enclave Advanced is the superior suit of the two.